Thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's critical conversation. This is it's a new trend. We have so much information to share that we need to have regular critical conversations. We're really glad that you could join us today for this. As always, this is being recorded. A copy of today's Zoom will be available from Phil's intranet critical conversation webpage. Should anyone that you work with have not been able to attend, they can view a copy of this recording. Our goal is to have that up by Friday. As always, there is going to be a brief presentation portion. Chat will be disabled for that. So as Mary is presenting, if you have any questions, please feel free to jot them down. Once Mary's finished, I will open the chat. Now, we do anticipate that lots of folks will probably have questions. And to make this as seamless as possible and to maximize our time together, we ask that you please put any questions directly in chat so that everyone in the meeting can view them. That way, people know if their question has already been discussed and answered, or they won't just start repeating questions. We want to make it as easy as possible for everybody to follow along. As always, we would love for you to actually raise your little Zoom emoji hand, and then we can call on you. But those are the two ways: using chatting everyone in the meeting or raising your Zoom hand, and we will answer the questions in the order that they are received. Okay, Phil, I turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Beth. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time today for us to talk about our new FlexWork program option and give you an update on what's happening with telework. And also wanted to give you some preliminary slides as reminders. So, Beth, we will just start with our open door days that these run throughout the summer. They're noted here. The opportunity for you to either get in touch with Angela and make an appointment or stop by. Making an appointment will guarantee you that you'll be able to come in and have a conversation, but actually stopping by sometimes works as well. And we usually split them between Lowell and Bedford and Zoom. So please be in contact with Angela if you'd like to take advantage of those. I also want to remind people about the dates for our upcoming critical conversations. As we're delving into new areas at the college, it's really important that we have the upcoming schedule so that you know when they're scheduled throughout the summer and all the way to next summer. Again, always on Tuesdays and always between 2 and 4. But you can also go back and revisit any of the conversations that you miss. And Beth, thank you for reminding people about that and when it will be posted. And then the third piece is really just to talk about the opportunity that we all have for community that will happen in August, which will be our Employee Appreciation Cookout, which happens on the 4th, a Tuesday from 12 to 2 at the Bedford campus. And we'll be welcoming our new vice presidents, Dr. Maggioni and Dr. Harris. The opportunity for food and ice cream, and there'll be a shuttle that will be going back and forth. Just make sure that you jump on and RSVP by 3 o'clock on Tuesday the 30th so that we can order the appropriate amount of food to be able to have time to celebrate with each other and make sure that we don't run out of food for anyone. So thank you for your willingness to RSVP. We appreciate that. This afternoon, we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, and that's sort of the hours and the way that we all work together as a community. This has been a topic of conversation for a number of years since the pandemic. We have made changes to our current telework cycle. We've made changes to the process. In fact, we've been through an impact bargaining session with our union leadership to be able to articulate exactly what would happen when we went and reduced from to 1 day. And also in that impact bargaining spoke about a total reduction of telework. And during that impact bargaining session, I will say that our MCC leadership and our leadership for AFSCME have been very vocal and supportive in trying to create the most amount of flexibility for our employees. And I just want to do a shout out to both Kristen and Shannon, who have been incredible thought partners and really worked through a process that was as creative as we possibly could be to provide maximum flexibility for employees. And I think that you will see that that was our goal with this new program going forward. I want to, thank them for meetings. I want to thank HR for all of their good thoughtfulness and their approach to this in terms of the development of this policy. We are still in the process of fine tuning a lot of the details because this is such a radical approach to how people can construct their work week. And so we want to make sure that we try and accommodate as many different possibilities as possible. And we want to be as flexible about that as possible within reason. And we want to make sure that we get the appropriate rules and policies down on paper before the leadership from AFSCME and from MCCC sign off on this local agreement. These are local agreements in the sense that they oftentimes run contrary to what may be standard procedure in our own collective bargaining agreements. We've done this many times here at the institution successfully because we've had a good working relationship with our local leadership. And in essence, we are part of a system, but we do what is best for our own institution going forward. And that's been on the top of my mind for quite a long time now as we've introduced first Mass Reconnect and then Mass Educate, Free Community College, the number of students that we're serving, a lot of the conversation that we're having with our Achieving the Dream coaches about how we better serve our adults returning to campus and how we can do the best we can to provide on-campus courses for them and on-campus services at times that are convenient for them who are part of a work schedule that oftentimes is rather rigid. It will require the college to be more flexible. And so in this agreement, we've been trying to universally identify sort of when the college is open and when the college is closed to have some idea of how we might best serve our evening students and our students that are going to be returning for certificates and associate degrees on both of our campuses. So we're going to go through all the details of this new Flex Work program as an option. Again, I want to sort of eliminate any concern. This is an option for people within their rights at MCCC and our AFSCME folks, and also make sure that we're clear about the fact that we are not eliminating telework. We are redefining how that fits within the new Flex Work program option. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mary from HR to walk through the details of this. And then what we'll do is we'll try and answer as many of your questions as we possibly can. When we answer those questions, we may not be able to answer all of the questions for your individual set of circumstances. That's really part of what transpires in this option in terms of what you elect to do and what you discuss with your own manager and what managers decide are best for their own areas, because of course, that's the operational way that the college continues to remain open and does its business to serve students every day. But we want to try and take up any questions that you may have that you think may be questions that others would also have about this new policy and program. And so, Mary, thank you so much for doing this, and take it away, and then we'll open it up to questions afterwards.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's critical conversation regarding the proposed Flex Work program. Today's presentation is intended to provide an overview of the proposed program, explain the guiding principles behind it, and outline the anticipated next steps as we continue discussions with our union partners. At Middlesex, we remain committed to supporting employee well-being, operational excellence, and student success. As the college continues to evolve, particularly with the growth of our adult learner population, we recognize the importance of maintaining strong on-campus services while also exploring thoughtful and sustainable workplace flexibility options. This proposed Flex Work program is intended to help position Middlesex as a responsive, innovative, and employee-centered institution while continuing to prioritize the student experience and operational needs of the college. Beth, I don't know that my slides are displaying. If slide one. Yep. So if you just move to the next slide, please. First, I want to emphasize that the FlexWork program is entirely voluntary. The program would allow eligible full-time employees to maintain their full 37.5 or 40-hour work week while adjusting how those hours are scheduled across the week. Under the proposal, employees could extend their workdays Monday through Thursday in order to reduce hours on another day, often Friday, while still maintaining their full weekly schedule. Schedules could be structured over 4 or 5 days, depending on departmental and operational needs. The proposed core operating hours of the college would remain Monday through Thursday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. The program is also designed with some important guardrails. Employees may not work more than 10 hours in a day. Required meal periods and breaks must be continued to be observed. All schedules must continue to support departmental coverage, student-facing services, and operational effectiveness. The overall goal is to create flexibility while maintaining strong service and campus engagement. Next slide, please. This slide outlines how the request and approval process would work. Employees interested in participating would complete a flex work election form outlining their proposed schedule. Supervisors would review requests based on several factors, including departmental coverage, student impact, operational needs, equity, and consistency within the department. Approved schedules would then be updated by Human Resources and HRCMS to ensure payroll and time reporting accuracy. The goal is to provide a consistent and transparent process that allows flexibility while ensuring departments continue to effectively serve students and support college operations. As with any workplace arrangement, communication between employees and supervisors will remain an important part of the process. Next slide, please. This proposal, as Phil shared, also includes a limited remote work provision. In addition to participating in an optional flex work schedule, employees working at least 37.5 hours per week, excluding our AFSCME Unit 2 employees, would be eligible for limited remote work to address short-term needs. As we transition from our current telework program, employees will be provided with 4 remote work days that may be utilized between August 24th and December 31st, 2026, the end of the year. Beginning January 1st, 2027, eligible employees will receive 15 remote work days annually. These remote work days may be used in full day increments and may be utilized for up to 1 full work week. As with our current practices, supervisory approval is required and remote work arrangements may not disrupt college services or operations. Remote work days will be tracked between employees and supervisors and entered into HRCMS using the TEL designation. The intent is to provide employees with meaningful flexibility while maintaining the strong on-campus presence, collaboration, and student support that are central to our mission. Beth, next slide. This program also includes clear expectations and responsibilities for both employees and supervisors. Employees participating in flex work would continue to be responsible for maintaining productivity and responsiveness, ensuring accurate time reporting, remaining available during operationally critical periods, communicating proactively with supervisors regarding any needed changes. Supervisors would be responsible for maintaining adequate departmental coverage, reviewing requests consistently and equitably, monitoring the effectiveness of schedules, and ensuring alignment with institutional priorities and student service needs. Additionally, all flex work arrangements must continue to comply with our wage and hour laws, collective bargaining agreements, and existing college policies and procedures. I also want to emphasize an important principle included in the guidelines. Participation in the flex work program is voluntary, and there will be no negative consequences, retaliation, or coercion related to an employee's decision whether or not to participate. The goal is flexibility and choice. It's voluntary. Slides, I think we're up to slide 6. You can move to the next slide. As we look ahead, current telework arrangements will remain in place through Friday, August 21st, 2026. Employees who may need adjustments to their existing telework schedules between July 1st and August 21st should continue working directly with their supervisors for review and approval. At the same time, the college continues collaborative discussions with AFSCME and MCCC leadership regarding the final details of the Flex Work program. We sincerely appreciate the partnership and the thoughtful engagement of our union colleagues throughout these conversations. At this time, the anticipated launch date for the Flex Work program will be August 24th, 2026. Additional implementation guidance, forms, FAQs, and operational details will be shared with employees prior to launch. You can go to the next slide, Bill. Before we conclude, I want to acknowledge that change can bring both excitement and questions. Our intent with this proposed program is to provide meaningful flexibility while continuing to meet the needs of our students, support our departments, and maintain the high level of service that defines Middlesex Community College. This proposal reflects months of thoughtful discussion, collaboration, and planning, and we are grateful to our union partners and employees who have shared feedback throughout the process. Our goal today is to be as transparent and informative as possible while these discussions continue. Thank you all for your engagement, your professionalism, and your continued commitment to our students, colleagues, and the college. We appreciate your partnership as we work together to build a flexible and responsive workplace for the future. So at this time, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Mary. And just remind everybody, as you have questions, please just put them in the chat. And I think Beth will open chat. And also, you can use your hand raising emoji to let us know, and then we can try and answer your question. And again, some of the questions may be scenario based, so we'll do our best to answer them. It's pretty clear this is an opportunity to create something far more flexible, much like what we've done. It's to some degree based on what used to be what folks around here would call summer hours, but only to do that all year long and to be able to accommodate a variety of different schedules for different individuals that might not only assist those individuals, but assist the college in requiring and opening offices for longer periods of time and being able to address the continued expansion of our students that are coming to us through Free Community College, and especially focused on our adult learners that are going to be critical to enrollment for the future. So we look forward to your questions, and either Mary or I will try and tackle them as they come up, and Beth will read them and make sure that everybody knows what the questions are.
Beth, you're on mute.
Beth, you're muted. Sorry, it happens. We've only been doing this forever, but
yeah, I'm new to this, guys. All right, so the very first question, how will this affect overtime for professional staff?
I'm going to let Mary handle the overtime question, because overtime is really once you essentially get over the time that's built into your regular schedule, and your regular schedule would become your flex schedule. So it really doesn't impact overtime. But Mary, why don't I let you try and handle that from a more CBA approach?
Yeah, that's right. The collective bargaining agreements really dictate the earnings of overtime and the parameters of that. So the provisions of overtime for professional staff and AFSCME still remain. This policy is really, and program is really just focused on the scheduling. You're still working your 37.5 or 40 hours work week, and then anything addition would be the eligible overtime, comp time, all the same provisions as provided in the CBAs.
All right, next question. Will the college be providing a worksheet or template for tracking telework days?
That's a great question. I don't know that we've gotten to that level of detail in terms of how managers and individuals will, but it may make sense that that would be the best way to do that. Mary, I don't know if you have any particular thoughts, or I know it hasn't been discussed yet as an issue of how to best track.
Yeah, it will, an employee will be required to notify their supervisor for that, whether it's at that full day increment or a duration of a work week, 5-day work week at a time. So that conversation and your supervisor would approve your tell code and recording in the HRCMS system. So if a template would be valuable for that interaction with your supervisor, some may create that now. I'm trying to think of how supervisors, monitor their employees' use of a tell schedule at this time. So it's really this HRCMS system that will kind of over the course of the year be able to record that you've used your 15 days. In the course of the year, you really have to have that dialogue with your supervisor to let them know because it's going to be on the basis of what the department is able to support and cover.
Yeah, it would be wonderful if our current system that we work with the state would allow us to track these much like it does with personal days or vacation days. But because this is a local agreement, it would not, that mechanism would not exist at this time within the system. So maybe in the future, the systems that we're working with, and they may change within the state, maybe allow us to track this in a very different way. But we'd rather automate this than have to do it in any other fashion. But right now, this is the only way that we can begin the process.
Next question, will this flex work opt-in and out be annual, similar to how telework has been communicated?
I'll let Mary handle that one as well, because it's in the
Yep.
it's in the policy.
So it will, the guidelines will provide that, the system, because we have to update systems within HRCMS, you're really locking in a schedule to follow. So it's not that we're changing it. The way the current program, telework program, there's a renewal cycle that every 6 months you're looking at that. That won't be kind of wide scale. The question on if an individual needs to make a change to their schedule, they're going to have to notify their supervisor, fill out a new election form, and that will be processed in the HRCMS system, sending it to our HR payroll team in order to do that. So it's not as fluid as I'm going to decide this one week, I'm going to decide this in a month and have that many changes. It's really locking in a more set schedule and knowing that some individuals will have, unique circumstances that they have to make a change. They would make that request to their supervisor for that adjustment.
All right. Next we have, does the flex work option apply to NUPS?
It does indeed. I mean, it's an interesting question, and we've had this question come up quite a bit in our own discussions. NUPS work until their job is finished. That is sort of the way NUP works in terms of all of the folks that are in that category within reason. I mean, this flex schedule may provide an opportunity for NUPS to be able to articulate a better balance for them as well. It will not be something that can always be honored for NUPS because of so many other issues that need to be taken care of in terms of deadlines or events or others. But for the most part, the concept behind this flexible work schedule is to democratize sort of the flexibility that will allow, and at the same time, the accountability for work hours. So we are hoping that will be the case. And in fact, we may find that in some work areas, there will be discussions about what a work area is and how that may happen in terms of coverage. So there's a lot of flexibility here depending on what we get for requests, who elects to be part of this, what that election looks like. And we certainly would want our NUPS to participate as well.
If there is limited staff interest in a flex schedule, would there be flexibility to hire additional part-time staff to cover evening and/or weekend hours, particularly if the office provides student services and was included in the student survey recently completed?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, it's one of the challenges that is a budget-related challenge to why we've moved to this possibility is the fact that in order for us to expand hours, there are lots of ways to approach that. This flex schedule is one of them. I think once we get a better sense of the election, we can talk about it. We've had lots of requests in this budget for additional personnel, and yet the issue around this is what the local agreement is. It allows us to flex beyond what is traditionally in a 9 to 5 schedule. And so we would have to have some additional conversations in the next budget cycle. But I think this is, like anything else, a pilot to see exactly how we might be able to flex our hours and flex our ability to best serve students with this agreement and see where it takes us. And then I think the next level will be to have a conversation about how we provide coverage across the institution beyond what we've talked about for extending those hours. So we're going to do this first and see where it takes us.
All right, Mary, is the flex work option in addition to or in place of the 15 remote days each year?
They're both. You do not need to participate in a flex work schedule or that program to have the 15 optional remote days. So those are what were the choices again? In addition or
Yeah, in addition or in place of.
They're not in place of.
right.
The opportunity for those 15 flexible remote work days are part of the universal approach to the change in remote work. You can have those 15 days whether or not you choose to be part of the flex work program option.
If a given department has a lot of interest in flex work, is there flexibility in being open on Friday afternoons?
Haven't gotten to that's another one of those in the future questions. Haven't gotten to that point yet. I think it would still be the manager's responsibility to be able to identify whether or not that core service needs to be open during regular college hours. So my initial response is that college hours are college hours and things have to be covered. But I think it will be an interesting idea for us to take a look at exactly what the demand will be and what we'll be able to do. So don't have an immediate answer to that yet until we have a sense of what the flex work schedule option produces in the first couple of months.
Can telework days only be used in full day increments of 7.5 hours, or can employees track telework hours, for example, working a half day, 3.75?
We discussed this at great length and went back and forth for a while about it and landed with the idea that flex work day, the remote schedule needed to be in full day increments as for the majority of what our folks currently utilize them for. And that's where we landed in this particular policy.
If we opt out of flex work, do we get to keep our telework day, or do we lose that after 8/24?
Yeah, after 8/24, there is no extension of telework beyond the 15 telework days annually and the 4 that have been set up for the remainder of this academic, well, not academic year, but fiscal year. So there will be 4 as have been identified in the policy for the remainder of the year beyond August to December. And then in January, the clock begins again with the 15 remote work days that are universally available to everyone.
Are part-time employees able to participate?
The answer is no, because I think our part-time employees have not been able to participate currently in what we are doing with any remote work or flexible work. And I think there's flexibility for part-time folks by the very nature of part-time work. So, Mary, am I answering that correctly?
Yeah. This program is just for our full-time employees.
Thanks.
How would holidays impact change schedules? For example, if staff are working more or less hours on Mondays when there are a lot of holidays, how will that impact holiday pay and reporting?
Yeah, so if we think of a work schedule being the 37 or 40-hour work week, our holidays are paid as 1/5 of what our hours worked are. So on a daily basis, you're receiving your 7.5 or 8 hours of holiday pay. So if you elect this option to have a flexible schedule with extended days, you would have to supplement those hours past the 7.5 or 8 hours with vacation, personal, kind of your accrued leave time, um, and or work additional hours on a different day, I guess. So there would be, you're not earning more vacation, or excuse me, you're not earning more holiday hours than your 7.5 or 8 hours. So it's if for those that were working with the college in the summer hours program days, it'd be a similar exercise on the HRCMS time entry sheets that you'd be recording your days. That's some of the guidance and information that we'll be including when this program is launched to just help share with the college some of those scenarios for your timesheet entries.
Yep. Great questions so far.
Next question. Does an employee need to designate their flex day in advance as part of the flex work application? Additionally, within a given week, can the flex day time be taken on any day between Monday and Thursday?
See if I understand that. Let me just read it again because it's posted here. No, once you develop your flex work schedule, that is your flex work schedule. It does not flex from week to week, day to day. It is a designated work schedule to allow you that if you wanted to work 4 days and complete all your hours, that you would have a day off in that week. That is something that you would commit to, and that would be your schedule. So it doesn't mean that you get to change them within any. There's not that level of flexibility. Managers would have a really hard time we wouldn't be able to operate the institution with that level of flexibility. So appreciate the question, but once you determine what your flex work schedule is, then that's pretty much your schedule, unless you can make any additional changes with your manager over time. Again, we don't want to get into this every 6 months. We have to go back through this process of reiterating it. Once you've developed your flex schedule, it works. And if you're finding that there are issues with that flex schedule, you have to go back and have a conversation with your manager about any changes to it.
All right. Next question. Will the start date be moved up to earlier in the summer if gas prices skyrocket?
No, the start date is a start date. None of this has been based on anything other than the needs of the college and trying to address the increase in flexibility for schedule. So what we are presenting to you is an option that we have presented and discussed through with both AFSCME and MCCC. Once we sign a local agreement, that is our local agreement. And so there will be no change to the start date. And it will be revisited every year. And that's part of what we have in the policy as well, that we can go back and take a look at where we are, how successful or has this been, to review it and to review anything we might have missed in the policy, that the policy becomes far more integrate in the future. But I think we'll see some scenarios along the way that will help. We've been doing that as we've been discussing this over the last couple of months, trying to think through what the major scenarios might be. And of course, we will have missed something, and we will miss, as we implement this, many things. And that's why it's sort of a pilot policy to see how we move through this next year.
Another question related to ensuring consistent services. If some departments choose not to participate in or volunteer to flex work, how do we ensure consistent services and supports for our students?
Yeah, we won't know that until we have a better sense of what's happening with the flex schedule. It's a great question, but we have not in this year's current budget designed a number of part-time positions to be able to address this issue. It may mean some flexibility around the actual college hours, which is something we had talked with the MCCC and the AFSCME folks as well. So again, I think we'll learn from the process, but there is no immediate attempt in anything that we would do to hire additional part-time to cover additional hours. We have not gotten to that point in terms of how this works for flex scheduling and how that will impact the college. It may work very well in some areas, and we may have some holes and gaps in others, and that's when we'll begin the conversation about what next steps will be.
We've had two more questions related to telework going away. So I just want to have one of you answer it again. When does the telework option go away in the 1 day per week model that we have?
In August, as was already, the extension goes until August. That was pretty clear in the HR information that was sent out. We did not have this agreement completed and reviewed in the detail that you are receiving it today by the time that information went out, but we wanted to at least let people know what that extension would be from July to August. We wanted people to be able to be aware as soon as we had a tentative agreement on what this particular FlexWork option would be. So August has already communicated to the college community, and we will communicate all of this out once we have the full written policy so that people are well aware. I think what we're hoping people will do is take this away. And I think earlier in the chat, Beth, people asked to see the FlexWork slide again. We can show that slide again and be able to converse with people. And if people have specific questions about what might happen if they choose to do X, Y, and Z, I think I've already alluded to one, which is like this is an opportunity for summer hours, quote unquote, all year long, depending on how you build them. And you can build a FlexWork schedule that really meets your needs. So it can be anywhere from meeting those over the course of 4 days to an abbreviated day on a 5th day. There's a lot of ways to approach this once you start doing the FlexWork scheduling. Well, thank you.
So I'll just leave this up for a few seconds. Folks that are on, please screen cap this if you want a copy of this to refer to for the rest of today's critical conversation. I'll leave it up for a couple seconds more. Okay. All right. Our next question. If you choose a remote day, will it be one of your regular working days? One of the 4 10-hour. So I think the question is, if you participate in the Flex program and you want to take a telework day, is it one of your already longer days?
Yeah,
because that's your schedule. Yeah.
Yeah, it may be, and that would be recorded as 10 hours of tel.
Yep.
Great. Next question. The college had an evaluation on telework productivity and employee satisfaction a couple of years ago by a consulting company. Will the college consider another evaluation with the new telework policy?
Yeah, let me clarify what that was and what it wasn't. That was not a telework productivity assessment. That was an assessment of how managers and individuals at the institution felt about the telework policy at that time. And so it was obviously incredibly positive, and we've made changes since that time, but there's a lot that's changed in our environment since that time as well. So I think that's an assessment that we are fully capable of doing ourselves with or without a consultant, and we can actually do that. But the bottom line is that that was really a how do you feel about telework assessment, a self-reported, nothing about productivity was in there other than some questions about how productive you may feel, but it did not have any productivity as part of the actual assessment in that survey.
All right. Next question. Will the flexibility be paused during high peak registration periods? Or high peak for facing student employees begins the 3rd week of August through the 2nd week of September, and then again before the spring semester. So will the flex work be paused during those times?
A flex work schedule is a flex work schedule, and my answer to that is that there would not be a pause. And though that's been how we've worked with remote work in the past because it was so consistent for remote work each week. We are hoping that this flex work schedule will accommodate the college's needs without any additional need to pause. And that's not how the program was designed. It was designed to be a flex work schedule that is developed and agreed to by your manager, and that is the way that we would work through what we need in terms of being able to address any purges. And perhaps some of the hope with the extended hours would potentially mean that we wouldn't see the kinds of rushes that we see to some degree in concentrated hours because we're now meeting people's needs at other hours. So too much unknown in all of that, but the intention behind the policy is that the policy is the policy. You choose your flex work schedule, you identify it, your manager agrees to it based on what they see from all the employees within a given work area, and then that will be it. There is no pause to that, no change to that until such time that the employee themselves will exit or there's some conversation about how that would change college-wide.
Okay. Thank you. And then another question about will all departments be eligible? for the flex work program?
The answer is yes. This is a universal college-wide program. Our interest in having direct conversation with our AFSCME partners and our MCCC partners is because each of those CBAs has very different language in it about how this would work. AFSCME, a lot more flexibility. MCCC has defined hours within it. And so therefore, we want to make sure that we're signing a local agreement to be able to address that we all agree to experiment with the flex work schedule.
How long will a new employee need to work at MCC before these options are available?
They're immediate. They would be immediate for all employees.
Next question, will telework possible through reasonable accommodation? So can somebody using reasonable accommodations have telework? I believe is what's being asked.
I'm going to let Mary and HR answer the accommodations issue and how accommodations are, sort of addressed. So I think that's a question that may rest in the hands of HR on FMLA or other pieces. So I'll let them handle that.
Yeah, I think this isn't impacting our accommodation process, which is for needs of employees with disability or illness. They really continue to work with our ADA coordinator, review the appropriate medical documentation and make a determination and working with the supervisor, engaging in that interactive dialogue to determine what is a reasonable accommodation to help support the employee through their and meet their needs. So that doesn't change that process, but it is separate. It's separate from our flex work program.
Is there an opportunity to change a flex schedule once per year, maybe when the academic year ends, for example? Could someone opt into flex schedule just for the summer?
Great question. And I think the answer is we've talked about the frequency of change in the policy. And Mary, I think you may have more detail about this. I know that we wanted to try and be as flexible about that as possible within reason. But I think it does impact sort of operational issues. So I don't want to misspeak on this one.
No, and I think we have spent a lot of time talking about this and trying to kind of balance the needs of the supervisor in the work area in the department to manage the schedule and manage again the operational needs versus substantial change. So that's why we really went back and forth on how frequently is there an overarching renewal or change. It really comes down to a case by case individual need basis. So I think falls into you have to have that discussion with your supervisor to see if it's a possibility, depending on the schedules and team members and kind of what your work area looks like, if they can support that change. It's really and then just from a procedure standpoint, we just have to make that change into your time so your timesheet entries can be accurate. So I don't know that that's a good answer, but that's really the nuance of having this flexibility, but not making it again burdensome to your work area and your supervisor in meeting the needs to change that frequently. So
all right, next question. Will all teams be open until 7 p.m. or only student-facing teams?
Our goal is to really make sure that we address service to students. All teams then support people who provide services to students. And so therefore, this is going to be an area that we're going to have to work very carefully to address. I think what I would say around that is that there may be some folks that are not in student-facing roles that may choose flex because it may be quieter, it may give them a day off by concentrating over 4 days, or they may want to flex to have a shorter day on a Friday. So all of that is possible for all. The issue about making sure that we cover all of the needs is something that we're going to have to address as we look at this. More importantly, the institution is very focused on those that are student-facing areas, obviously, most importantly, but again, other teams support those that are student-facing. So how do we address that issue? So I think it's going to be a conversation as we move through the process. There may be some people that choose to flex, and then that takes that question away in terms of whether or not the hours are covered. So this is going to be, again, an experiment in process to see what happens with the initial responses for the flex work schedule.
Yeah. And I just wanted to share one additional thing is that there is the Strategic Leadership Council, and there is a working group and team that is focused on the hours of the college and has work underway that we'll be learning about more into the future to really focus on what are the needs in specific work areas to meet what the demands for student services are. So I think that's going to be, that work is underway and will be concurrent with this program. So as we move forward, we should be able to learn a lot more of those specifics and in order to have just greater clarity in who really needs to be having the extended hours to support the college.
Actually, that was a much better and clearer answer, Mary. Thank you.
Next, what if you have to cover time off for a coworker on your flex day?
Your flex day. Cover time. Okay, Mary, you may have to take this one. I'm being thick about it, I think.
And I don't know where this question is because there's quite a long chat listed here, but the way I'm interpreting that is I don't know if we're using the day flex day. Is that the day we're referring to as you have your longer hours, you're working on campus? I mean, that's just doing your work and supporting your work area. If you're using the term flex day as that's my remote work day, and now I'm going to be asked by my supervisor to come in, I don't know which scenario we're kind of looking at. So it's basically we have to continue supporting our teams and colleagues and have vacation, and all that remains the same. You might just be doing it at different hours. So I think the principle of it, we have to support each other when people are out sick with illness or on vacation. So that philosophy doesn't change. I don't know if that helps. I can't see where the question came in from.
Yeah, sorry we didn't do a very good job of answering that, but I think we're trying. But I think Mary has separated out the two things. I think if you're asking a question about your remote day, that's a separate conversation for managers to manage because you're still having coverage. So I think it's one of those, it's a challenging area that I'm not sure we're answering your question very well, but it is a consideration. These questions are going to help us as we refine the policy as well. So
Shannon, do you have something that can aid in that conversation?
Yeah. So I think the question is about if you've shortened your work week and you don't work on a Friday and someone is out, can you get called in to cover if someone is sick when you normally don't work that day at all? I think is the question.
I think that would hit into some overtime and comp time parameters. Like if you already met your work schedule,
right.
So that's going to be even a different discussion to see if you are want to work overtime. So that would.
But you can't get called in. It would need to be a voluntary overtime situation, correct?
I lean to that way because I just
we can't really be like on call as far as I'm concerned.
And your supervisor's presenting the need to, hey, I need to work over, and it's anything beyond your 37.5, 40 hours. So certain positions may have some on-call language. That's why like it wouldn't be in the example of sharing, that would have to be your voluntary overtime. It's you finished your work week and it's your day off.
Right. And I'm out of town because it's my day off. So I can't come in.
Yeah, I think you've already answered your question.
Marielle?
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to piggyback on that. So once you commit to a schedule, the idea is that we have to make changes in HRCMS where it's kind of like you're binding yourself to a schedule, because then the system is going to understand that like you work 10 hours on Monday and maybe 9.5 on Tuesday or whatever you've arranged. So it's you really need to commit to that schedule, because if there are changes, it will impact the overtime rules for that day for MCCC and for AFSCME. So like if you've committed to like Monday being a 9.5 day and now suddenly you're entering 10 hours, the system is going to start calculating OT. So if your supervisor in that scenario on a Friday, you usually leave at 12 and they're now calling you in to cover a sick day, the supervisor has to be aware that it's going to impact the OT calculations.
Yeah, it is flexibility within reason, right? I think that's part of what is the challenges here. Is people are asking for additional flexibility that I'm not sure we've thought through that process, but I think we've tried to answer it the best that we can.
All right. Next question. What impact does the new policy have on medical exemptions for working on the premises?
I think that's an accommodation, and we've already answered that question. I think that's the accommodations policy is a separate policy that's operated through HR. Mary, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, I think it sounds very similar to, it would be the case by case of what the medical documentation would provide for and what the needs for the individual. So I don't know about what the word exemption means necessarily, but I think it is falling to the what our ADA accommodation process is.
Great. Next question. Will the 15 days be bankable and carry over from year to year, or for lack of a better term, you'll use them where you lose them?
Yep, it's like personal time. It's exactly correct, Chris. I mean, that is, they're not bankable. They're like personal time, and that's the way it has to run in order for us to be able to operationalize the institution. So it is an addition to the flex work schedule as part of a compromise, but at the same time, not bankable.
All right. Can I ask our HR folks to go over the holiday question again related to how holidays impact changed schedules? We seem to be getting a lot. Marielle, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure, I can take it. So you're still, by law, as employees of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, we are only eligible to receive 7.5 hours or 8 hours if you're a 40-hour employee in holiday pay when there's a holiday. So regardless of how your schedule is set up, and depending on when the holiday falls, you're only going to get 7.5 hours. So you will have to, let's say it's a day that you are typically scheduled for 9 hours. You're going to have to take the extra as either vacation or personal. Or you can make up the hours and arrange it with your supervisor on a different day.
Thanks, Marielle.
Thank you, Marielle.
Thank you.
Joanna, do you have something related to one of the questions we've discussed?
I do, because I was
All
kind
right.
of thinking it through in my head. Marielle, would it have to emphatically be on a different day from the holiday?
What would have to be on a different day?
Those additional hours. If let's just say I work on a Monday and I have things that I do that don't require a face-to-face per se, and perhaps I could pop in and, whatever, into work or remotely work an hour and a half to get some things done, and then the rest of the day holiday. Is that something that can happen, or that's unusual because the system won't?
Probably against state law would be.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I'm just throwing it out there to ask the question.
No,
Thank
it's a
you.
great question, but and would provide even additional flexibility. But there are certain things that we're trying not to break state law in the way we operationalize this. So
Yeah,
do the best we can.
in the one piece, Joanna, that you shared was can I just finish the work remotely? That would be kind of back to those hourly increments, which your remote work wouldn't be eligible for. It has to use on that daily basis in
Great.
full day increments. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question. This is a unique program. Are many other colleges doing this, or are we leading the way and redefining what a work week can look like? Thank you for working with the unions to develop this.
Well, let's just say that our AFSCME leaders and our MCCC leaders have communicated this with statewide leadership, and they have been very supportive of what they have seen thus far. Our belief is that this is really not happening anywhere else. Who knows what's happening in other states, but I think, like anything else, it's like putting a new air conditioning unit in a building that hasn't been had HVAC done in 40 some odd years. People don't do stuff because it's too complicated and difficult to do, right? This is complicated, and it takes a lot of opportunity to think through all of the things that could work or not work. And I think we're very open to experimenting here because I think we're sincere about the fact that there are a lot of people that can benefit from increased flexibility. And if they can, then they should be able to take advantage of that. And that's part of our belief system in how we work through this project. I call it a pilot simply because I have no idea how other institutions within the state are going to respond to it. It's a local agreement. People are always unhappy with local agreements because it impacts their institution. And I think it's my responsibility as a leader and all of our responsibility to do what's best for our students, our employees here at Middlesex. So we're giving this the good old college try because I think that there's real benefit both for the college and for employees in doing this. So I have not heard whether this is being done anywhere else. And quite frankly, it's not based on anything. It's not a program that exists out there that we took it down off a shelf or took it from the internet and redesigned it. This is in many ways based on what was, as I've said, the very popular summer hours that existed for some time that gave people increased flexibility to work additional hours and then take, a part of a day off and to reduce their hours on another day. And conceptually, that worked very well for the institution for a number of years. And that's why we use that, I guess, as the foundation for this. But this program isn't something that we created from something that exists somewhere else. Mary, I'm not aware of anything, and we did a little research, but there's not anything out there. It certainly doesn't exist in the state anywhere at this point in public institutions.
Yeah, that's correct. There was a popular book, your 4 hour, 4 10s, your 4 day work week. So conceptually, it exists in workplaces, but I think really applying it to the community college system and leveraging kind of the benefits that we experienced during the summer hours program implementation. I think we were trying to balance again the needs of what our students need and will be demanding into the future, but balancing that with what our employees need as well.
Next question, how do I maintain a consistent flex schedule when my department takes on various requests from other departments to cover events throughout the year, which are on a case-by-case basis and may not be consistent with my flex schedule?
Yeah, my assumption is that would be handled through overtime, but I may be misspeaking. I think that, like anything else, is if there's something that comes up and the department is asking someone to cover that, whether it be admissions or some other area, those are, reasonable requests. And in essence, we've talked about, sort of outlined the parameters of Monday through Thursday, but, you may be flexing another day. There's a lot of ways to look at this. We've just tried to give you the most obvious. But my assumption is that request would be an overtime or a comp time request. But that's my initial answer that I have at this time. Mary, I don't know if you have anything else about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think this will depend on what your employment classification is too, because we do have some non-unit professionals, right, that are eligible for this and are not eligible to receive any of the comp time or overtime provisions. So, and there's more of an expectation that you can work long hours, cover weekend needs, be at events, so there's nuance in that as well. But I think looking at each employment classification individually, you're right, Phil. It's going to trigger either the overtime or comp time scenario, or it's looking at some of kind of the roles and responsibilities. Phil works 24/7, so he's as president, non-unit professional. So we look at some of those situations, based on kind of the responsibilities
Yeah.
as well.
No one else has to do that.
Right.
Marielle, I'm assuming you have
Yeah.
helpful insight.
Just a quick on Jeff Kaplan's question. I think the reality too is like if you know that you consistently have, a meeting that takes place at a certain time and you're trying to flex to, that might not perhaps fit that, then it might not work based on the department needs. So this is something that you have to talk to your supervisor about to make sure that your schedule fits the needs of your work area. And that needs to happen at the start of this.
Yeah. Marielle's point is really, I mean, like in all things, this is about good conversations to address departmental and area needs. But I mean, there is also the possibility, and I'll throw this out there because I have talked about this before, is that if someone is flexing to come in later in the day and staying later in the day, and if that person doesn't come in till 10 o'clock, right? Then the conversation about if you have a department meeting that starts at 9 and finishes at 11, it may mean that the department may have to change based on what you've agreed to, change the hours of that particular meeting, right? And that's certainly could be part of the conversation as well. So, and then that may mean that some area meetings that have typically been held in the morning may flex into the afternoon. Again, a little bit of unknown here in all of this, but I think people generally get the concept behind what we're trying to produce.
So we have more questions around, and I know Marielle, you answered this, so I'm going to put you on the spot, just because I think others on the Zoom also have this question. Can you clarify the difference between being open from 7 a.m. to 7 or 7 a.m. to 5 versus those are the hours you can choose to work late in? So you had answered some of this to a chain with Joanne Delmonico and Amy Mahoney.
Yeah, I think the question was, is there an expectation that the office is open from 7 to 7 Monday through Thursday and then 7 to 5 on Friday? And this goes back to what Mary had said in the beginning. We have an SLC group where we're working to determine what the schedules will be for different departments based on the college needs. So what was listed on the slide it's hours that you may be able to work. It's not office hours that your department must be open.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that you can see the attempt here is to expand service hours to people who want to access the institution. And there are clear examples of that now where we have adults that work 9 to 5 and they come into the institution and they can't access directly in person some of what they need. So I think the idea of when the college is open is something that we've never honestly been hard and fast about here at the institution. And this is what we're going to try and figure out over time. I mean, the idea is to be able to have something that would best serve students or individuals in the community that want to access some of our services here at the institution or want to work with the institution in some way. So it's not a perfect answer, but those hours were there as guidelines of what we were trying to do to extend to. I would also argue that depending on what your role is at the institution, you could be flexing beyond those hours as long as you don't go beyond the 10 hours a day that have been articulated in the agreement, right? So, and I don't want to get into whether somebody starts at 6:30 in the morning or not, but everybody's got a different way of operating and when their mind works the best and when they can respond. And we've all talked about how there are certain parts of the way that the college sort of functions is there are times when it's quieter and you can actually get work done, right? So that's all part of this is trying for people to identify based on what their own work rhythm is and what the needs of the area are, how does that help in some of this? So I think, again, it's going to take some ongoing conversations and some real thought on people's individual parts about how they work best and how that best contributes to the department that they are, part of a team.
Great, thank you. Oh, yes. So we have lots of questions about holiday. I'll get to that in one moment, everyone. But first, how will this affect professional day and assessment days if most folks will be taking Friday off for their flex day, or will there be limits to which day folks will be taking off?
I'm sorry, I was staring at the holiday questions because there's a lot of them. It seems like I feel like we answered some of them, but
Well,
I
this,
think I think
oh,
that the college, much like the conversation I just had about adjustment around some area meetings, it may be the same kind of adjustment that's required for professional day. And remember, I have to say this with all due respect, professional day happens literally twice a year. We're not talking about something that happens with any regularity. It is something that happens, um, if anything, it's more of an anomaly to anything that happens in any given semester. But it may force us to have a different conversation about how we implement professional days in the future. So I guess the answer is, if people would that change? Perhaps it would, depending on what it looks like with people's new flex work schedules.
Okay. So there's a lot of holiday pay related questions. And some of them we've already answered. So Phil, Mary, I don't know if you want to reiterate or you just want to
Yeah,
make sure that you.
let's. It's a good idea, Beth. Let's just take a shot at this, Mary. A holiday is a holiday. There are federal holidays that you all receive, that we all receive. I think there's 12 of them. Am I wrong about that number? There's a lot of them. There's 12, I think. We only have one month that doesn't have a holiday, and I can't remember which one it is. Maybe it's August.
12,
March.
right.
Yeah, because in Rhode Island we used to have something called VJ Day, but that's Victory over Japan. So I can't, I don't know why that sticks with me, but we used to have one day in every month. So here we have 12 holidays. Those holidays are awarded to us by the federal government. They're federal law. And the extent of that is that there's a certain number of hours that are part of that law and part of local agreements. And so I don't necessarily know that holiday changes. But why don't you go into the situation again, Mary, if somebody, and Marielle, if you can, if there's a flex day and your flex day happens to be a day that's longer, not your remote day, your flex day happens to be longer, and it happens to be a holiday, how does that play out for the individual?
So
Nobody. Marielle's going to try it
I
this
can
time.
try.
Saw
Okay.
Mary reach for it.
Yes,
And I was,
let me try again. So you only get 7.5 hours of holiday. That's the max. So if the holiday falls on a day that you typically work 9 hours, you're only going to get the 7.5. If the holiday falls on a day that on Friday, right? The upcoming July 4th, if and you only work 3 or 4 hours, you're only going to get holiday pay 3 or 4 hours, whatever your regular schedule is on Friday. I think Brittany had a follow-up on the holiday pay. She has her hand up.
Yep, Brittany, do you want to ask it more succinctly than I can read it?
Yes, I think everybody understands the longer days and the 7.5. So thank you for clarifying at the end. So basically, if someone chooses a reduced schedule on that holiday, are you saying that they only get then the 3.5 hours? So like if they flex their schedule where they're only working like 4 hours on Mondays, are they just out the 3.5 hours of holiday pay? Like how does that work? Because my understanding
Yes.
is that we still got 7.5 hours for the holiday.
No. So if your regular schedule now becomes that you only work 3 hours on a Monday and the holiday falls on a Monday, you're only going to get 3 hours for that day because that's your regular schedule now. It's just like we have it. It's a similar rule for part-time benefited people. If the holiday falls on a day that they are regularly scheduled, they only get the hours that they are regularly scheduled. You don't automatically get 7.5.
The
and
holiday,
just,
the holiday comes in a day increment, whatever that day increment means for you. I guess, but even that doesn't completely answer it. So it's not an easy one to answer.
Joanna, do you have a?
Just as a follow-up to Mary, Marielle, and Mary, can we visit that? Because I wonder, that seems like then you've got a whole cadre potentially of full-time employees who are not getting holiday pay, which every other state employee would be getting. So perhaps to award them the full 8 hour or 7.5 on the holiday, and then on a different day have them reduce their schedule. Do you know what I mean? Like the total week should add up to 37.5. Am I correct?
Yes.
And if there was a holiday during that week, then there should be 7.5 hours logged for everybody who works here that's full-time as professional staff as holiday pay, and they should be working the remainder. And
Well,
I realize this is a problem when somebody chooses to work Tuesday through Friday and the holidays on a Monday. I wonder if there's a way to rectify that to make it a little bit more, equitable for the
Yeah,
folks who've been here a long time.
it's
it's a
because
great question,
Yeah, just a
but
thought, just a thought.
yeah,
yeah, it's essentially because you have to commit to the schedule, right? It goes back to that idea of once you commit to that schedule, the system now, commits you to work a certain number of hours per day. So it's only going to give you what your regularly scheduled hours are for that day, up to 7.5 hours for holiday.
And as somebody stated, didn't we just say that the holiday is 1/5 of our pay in a week?
That's working on those extended days. That was trying to explain the extension of the 7.5 to 9.5 or
So
7 7
if
to
it
10.
applies, yeah, and I get that. I understand. That was a great way to explain it. But if it applies on that, then it's got to apply on the other end as well. So that's just something to kind of think about. I don't know if that's a great selling point. Um,
I
yeah,
think it's a very good question,
it
valid,
is
and I think it
interesting, and I
is.
know the state's difficult because it's very rigid in the system.
yeah, no, it's a valid question, and I just want to point out
Yeah.
that, and Shannon mentioned it earlier in the chat. If you missed it, I think the MCCPA is having a luncheon tomorrow. Shannon, I don't know if you want to speak on this in case anybody has any additional questions, but these are again the kinds of things that as we are working towards the signing of a local agreement, there may be ways for us to address some of these issues that are reasonable issues and reasonable questions. That have arisen. Yeah, this one perplexes me a little bit. So I hear you.
And I'm just even thinking about the upcoming June 19th holiday, right? We're all scheduled to work. We observe it then um, on that day. If someone was not scheduled, like we face it, I think this is good questioning that we still have to finalize kind of our Q&A document of what impact this has for individuals.
Yep.
All right. Next question, before I jump to you, Shannon, is about another potential change to our work schedule, which is weather. Would weather-related closures follow the holiday policy where you receive 7.5 or 8 hours, depending on your position, and one would need to adjust their schedules for the rest of the week or use personal or vacation time?
I think universally, you're talking about a cancellation on the part of the college. That's a
Yes.
cancellation, period.
Yeah,
Whatever
the,
day it
the
falls
weather.
on, you're not going to be messing with that.
Yeah, the weather's a little easier to handle because the college is closed
Right.
and you're going to receive your scheduled pay for that day.
All right, Shannon.
I was just going to take you up on plugging my meeting tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. 11:30 on Zoom. If anyone in the MCCC union didn't get an Outlook invite, please email MCCPA and I will forward that along to you. But it should have come in as a calendar invite.
Thanks, Shannon.
Next question. Can a program like this work for an office like admissions, where our schedules change weekly due to high school visits, events, on-sites, open house, etc.? It will be very difficult to plan in advance and have the entire office choose flex schedules when we don't know when our events will be in the future.
It's an interesting conversation that has to happen at admissions. I would like to think that it could work for any particular area. It may mean that it may change the dynamic of what some of the work is that gets done in admissions, and maybe that's a good conversation anyway. So, I mean, I would say that I can't answer that for a specific area. It does complicate things in a number of areas. I do understand that, but then how does that play out in terms of comp time? And I think that there's a larger conversation for a particular area, and I don't think we're going to be able to address any particular area here because the experts in that particular area would be the area themselves. So.
All right. And the other area where I've seen a lot of chatter is related to the max number of hours per day that someone can work. And specifically, if a staff member needs to add 2.5 hours to another flex day to make up for a holiday, will they then have to spread it out over many days if there's a cap of 10 hours?
Yeah, that may be the case. It's definitely the cap of the 10 hours with this program.
Yeah, we're trying not to abuse any labor laws in the process. I mean, some of us work 12 and 14-hour days anyway. So, but the issue is it may be a point for discussion, but I think we were trying to be reasonable in articulating a potential for someone to be able to complete their work week in 4 days. I mean, that's what our attempt was there. And maybe we did it with a blunt instrument, and there's some other questions that need to be answered. But just to let you know, that was the concept behind it, or adding hours to 4 days and then having a half day on another day, much like summer. So it's a good question, but I think it might be under rare circumstances, and I don't exactly know what those rare circumstances would be, but I don't think anybody wants to be doing 12-hour days on a regular day. But again, you're talking about making up hours from a holiday, which is could be a rare circumstance. So good question. Don't have an immediate answer to that one.
Marielle, can you confirm if it's 10 hours or 10.5 hours due to lunch? Shannon, do you want to?
Yeah, sure.
Expression better
So
than
are we in our offices working for 10 hours and putting 9.5 on the timesheet, or are we in our offices for 10.5 putting 10 on the timesheet? I thought it was 10.5 putting 10, but I just want to clarify. Joanna's shaking her head.
It's the second. So because your half hour, you don't get paid for your half hour lunch.
Okay, that's what I
So
thought.
the max you can physically get paid for is 10 hours. So it's not how Joanna has it written in the chat.
Okay. So isn't 37.5? How are we getting to 37.5?
It depends on the employee, right? So they have to work with their supervisor. So you could do 3 10s and then a fourth day of 7.5.
Okay.
Or you
Oh, so
can
it doesn't
split it
all
up.
have to be equal? Okay, sorry. That's what I was thinking.
We want to flex within the bounds of what makes sense for somebody, right? So in essence, we're not dictating that. We're just telling you what the max is on any given day. Great questions.
All right. So just to clarify, 10.5, 4 days a week would be 44 hours. So it would be 9.5 if 4 days a week.
No, I think that's that same example
Technically 9 3/8.
Right.
If you want to get
We're
crazy.
gonna do the math, right?
We don't want to do that. So you could work 2 at 9.5 and then maybe 2 at 9, like something like that. So, it'd work out.
Yeah, I don't know. I've worked here a long time. I've never seen anybody punching a clock. Nobody seems to care about when they come 15 minutes late. So, I mean, this idea, like this, I don't think, I mean, the idea is let's stick with the spirit behind it as opposed to let's stuck it into the 3/8 of an hour or whatever. Give or two.
Is there a possibility that we could get some staff scheduling software to help us?
Staff scheduling software. There's a possibility for anything, but who has a staff that's large enough that would have to, you need software for this? So you're talking about like staff scheduling software for the entire college. Interesting idea.
Phil, if I can jump in, it's Kim. I'm the one who asked the question. No, I was just thinking we're trying to be as flexible as possible with different staff members. Like it was sort of a joke, but also kind of a serious thing. Like if it'd be helpful if there was some kind of thing that we can say, these are the staff we have and these are the hours. But it was sort of being silly, but kind of would be helpful.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting idea. I don't know that a lot of places are doing this, so I don't know that someone's developed that software. But interesting to look into. And I think the concept behind this, and I think this is part of the policy as well, is that once you identify your flex schedule, that gets posted. Once your schedule is your schedule. So I thought I'd mention that too because it wasn't necessarily as part of the slides, but as part of the policy. But I think it would be interesting for us to look into whether or not that exists, whether it could be created. So it's a great question.
And our interim provost says that we can create templates in Excel, but
Yep.
he's interim, so.
Yeah. But he'll be around for a while, so I don't know. Maybe he's excited about trying to do that. I don't know. Nobody ever leaves the place, as you well know. Yeah, that's right.
We'll get you on the MCC retirement plan where this now becomes your whole job.
You're going to have to explain this to the new provost, so I'm hoping that you understand it well enough.
I can't explain any of this.
Yeah.
All right. I think I've caught everything. If anyone thinks I've missed something, please put it back in the chat. There was a lot of answering of questions in line by Shannon and Marielle, which I think was helpful, but it could mean that I've missed something.
I see a question here from Amy Beth. Oh boy. So for example, we can't decide to work a late night until 10 p.m. for our regular schedule. Interesting. I mean,
that was an example to try to explain how I was viewing what was being posted up there.
Yeah, but in your department, Amy, there's a very unique way that you serve students. So if there was some value that you wanted to start taking individual appointments,
no, thank you.
Yeah, what we're trying to say, outside the absurd, there is nothing that's out of the question if we really believe that it will work for the college and work for our students and work for employees. So trying to find some guardrails around this and at the same time, create flexibility. So it's a little challenging. That's the only thing that I saw that didn't get answered, I think. But
we also have a new question that came in.
Okay.
And I'm curious about safety on campus. If you are in your office till 7 p.m. alone, are we expected to see students if you are student facing? Would this be department by department?
Well, there are campus safety officers in every building here and available. So it's an interesting question. Would you be able to see students? Well, that same question would you be able to see students at 7 a.m. if you were the only person? Like, there are people that come in at 7:30 that are actually. I mean, some of this is happening already. I'm not sure how I answer the question. So, but from a safety concern, that means that every office would have to operate with more than one. But there'll be other people in the general area or vicinity in some cases. So, good question. Not exactly sure how that would play out.
And I could just be guessing on this, but this could be a Bedford campus question. We don't have security in every building in Bedford.
Correct.
Absolutely. Bedford question.
Any other questions that folks have? And I will make sure the transcript of the chat, I'll make sure that Marielle and Mary have access to that because there is feedback in here that I see you are relaying, questions and concerns. So I'll make sure that these questions all get to Marielle and Mary so that they can be sure to have answers ready when we move forward with this.
Yeah, this has all been so beneficial to help us think through these scenarios and be able to provide, we're building the guidelines, but this helps really us continue to hammer it out and make sure that the details for our launch are included in there.
Yeah, and I think what's really great here is that some folks have jumped in and tried to even answer some of the questions in a far more lucid way than we were able to. But I think Mary is right. Because we've had a collective voice here, we've been able to question several of things that we may or may not have thought of. And I think I mentioned that at the beginning, that you can only cover so many possible scenarios in all of this. And there'll be several that we haven't even discussed today. So we really appreciate your input and your response. What I appreciate about this institution and its ability to be innovative is the fact that we oftentimes don't let perfect get in the way of what could be very good for people. And I think that that's the spirit behind what we're attempting to do here. I, again, want to deeply appreciate the time and energy that Kristen and Shannon have devoted to asking a lot of really good scenario questions and working through some of the details with us. This has been a shared, very, very, very much. We've been thought partners in a lot of this, and we're very grateful for that. And if you have any further questions, I think Shannon's identified a lunchtime, but I think that you have representatives, and we can try and respond to as many of those questions as possible.
Phil, we do have one more question that has come in.
Yep.
Who will have the final say on approval of flex hours that staff propose? Mariel did answer, but...
Well, let's go with Mariel's answer. Let's see if it's mine, the same as mine.
The employee will need to work with the supervisor before submitting the election form.
Correct, because our conversation is always about conversations, right? And making sure that, we have to do what's reasonable for the team in the area as well, as much as we want to address individual needs. We work in units and we work in teams, and that's important to recognize. So appreciate the question. If there's anything else you come up with, please don't hesitate to reach out to...
Jennifer has raised her hand.
Hi, I'm just following up on the question I was the one who asked about the final approval. So what if there's a scenario where, let's say in my office, no one's going to be working on Fridays? I'm fine with that, but I'm wondering if the college as a whole would not be okay with that.
That's right.
Who makes that? So who makes that final decision?
Well, you have a dean and you have a vice president. You have a lot of people to tell you no about that. The college has to be open, right? So, yeah, I think that that's something that we'd have to consider, and we'd have to look at exactly where the issue is. And I think there are ways to talk about how we might be able to resolve that. So
that would be connecting with the dean and VP about recommended hours.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And when you think, and when the work areas, kind of in these upcoming weeks, as we think about, the SLC teams working, we're continuing to kind of fine tune the guidelines and MOA, is to think about, we keep referencing the summer hours, which had historically focused on the Friday, but it's through the work week. So somebody balancing, hey, I have needs, personal needs, family needs, to be Wednesday as my no work scheduled for me on that day. So we can treat each day flexibly in seeing that, if someone wants to attach it to a weekend, maybe Monday, you balance out the weekend with, not treating everybody focused on that Friday. So it's going to be kind of an exercise in gymnastics and figuring out how to balance this. And that's, I think, really our assignments personally as employees, thinking about what will work with us with our, family commitments, life. And then also, as from a supervisor standpoint, start taking these next weeks and thinking through what can we work on as a department, have conversations, hold meetings, really talking through this, because then that will put everybody kind of in the best foot forward going forward.
Yeah. And I think Mary's point is a really good one about what I was going to mention about next steps. I mean, each of you know in your own personal circumstances and how this may or may not benefit you. I think it's good for people to actually dream a little bit and think about what their ideal flex schedule might be. We'll provide some mechanisms to be able to do that once we get closer to an actual signed agreement. And then we can talk through how that process is over the next few weeks. So appreciate your questions and your feedback. And we answered everything that's in the chat, and not sure.
Yes.
Great. Any other last questions before we sign off? So hearing none, I want to thank you all again so much for your time, for your innovative approach to talking this through, for your scenarios that have really helped encapsulate where we're clear and on the money with our agreement in some of the areas. And again, it is an imperfect policy that's in development, and really appreciate your discussion and our ongoing discussion about this. And thank you all for your time today. Very valuable for all of us. Thank you. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And don't forget, a recording will be shared on the intranet so that you can go back and look at the slides and also the answers that Mary, Phil, and Marielle have provided.
Great. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good night.